Hello, and welcome to a little Monster Train guide content. I'm going to do a video talking about Banished. We're going to do one of these for each of the clans. I think we'll do the older clans too, because they are very different in context in Monster Train 2. So I will start doing these. Let me know what you prefer. I think I'm going to just do talking in the logbook. If there's an overwhelming request for me to do B-roll footage of the clan in the background and then just edit in the cards as we talk about them, I could do that. But it is a lot of effort. So only if it's like a lot of people want it. Anyway, I have like a 59 streak right now. I do undo and reset occasionally. I'm trying to not, but sometimes, I misplace a unit or I decide, oh, I want to play this fight a little differently. And so I use the mechanics, but I try not to when possible. However, I am pretty firmly of the opinion that you can win every round of Monster Train, so you just have to know what to do. This video will serve as a little bit of an idea of what you're doing when you're playing as Banished. Let's get to it, shall we? I wrote a script for this, but I have already forgotten it, and I don't like reading from scripts for these videos, so I'm just going to kind of freestyle it, and hopefully you will forgive me. I will try to cover everything. We'll see. We're going to go over the champions. I'm going to talk about all their cards, and then I'm going to talk about the relics in the end. And then we'll do like some general theory as well. So I guess we'll do the general theory first. I think that's going to make the most sense. Banished as a clan, if you look at their cards, they have a lot of movement, right? A lot of their mechanics, let's look at their units real quick. A lot of their units are shifting, and shifting triggers when they move, or they are this unit with Artificer or their Revenge, right? So basically Revenge is not like a unique trigger, but the big thing they have that's unique is Shift, and then they have Sword Maiden who has this Artificer, which is based around seeing allies equip things. It's kind of a little unique one-off, but then you go into their rares, they have Shifts, and they have a unit who moves. This guy's about movement. So mostly this clan is about moving around, and then you look at their common spells, and you have a few different cards about moving. You have Ascend and Advance, and then in their uncommons you have Descend as well. I think you have 2 Descends. No, this isn't Descend, sorry, this is Descend. You even have Demonize if you need it. So, and then their rare book is also Flight, which is move around. This is Advance, this is Advance. So you get the idea, right? This clan is about moving. Well, it can be about moving, I should say, right? Because sometimes you're playing something like Firebrand, right? And Firebrand doesn't give a fuck about moving. Swordman doesn't care about moving. And these two units are a little bit hit or miss, honestly, Battle Dancer and Demonic Fledgling. So the moving characters that you care about in this clan are actually usually Fel and Talos. But generally speaking, this clan has access to a lot of movement, and that matters because this lets you overstack floors. Banished is very often, when you're playing a primary Banished game plan, trying to put a lot of units on the floor. Can you hear these birds in my background? I can hear them. Sorry, I'm gonna pause real quick. I'm not gonna pause the video, I'm just gonna close my window. I'll edit that out in post, except for the fact that I'm not gonna edit. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, where was I? The movement stuff in this game, or in this clan, is mostly important to know because, especially with Talos, you'll be overstacking floors a lot. This clan very often is playing a single floor, and that's important. They get a lot of value out of it. Their equipment, this thing, Everlasting Light, is better if you have more units on the floor. Their shift units, if you have multiple shifts, they all trigger when you shift a unit, so getting more shifts in a floor is good. Things like that, right? You want to understand. So that matters because you need to think about approaching the Titans in this way, because if you're playing a single floor in the Titans, you're taking more damage. Typically, Banished is going to be taking around 60 in the Titans on an average run. That's about what you would expect to take if you fight the Titans on a single floor, and it takes 9 rounds. So, which I would say is average. I would say that's about right. And that is basically it for the basics. You're doing a lot of shifting, you're doing a lot of playing around their equipment combo. We'll talk a lot more about it later, but this equipment, Everlasting Light, combined with this equipment with Dualism, is 8 Valor to friendly units, which is a lot of scaling. But let's talk about the champions now. I don't think I have anything else to say generally about them. I should say, well, we'll talk about it when we get to units, actually. I was going to say their banner units are kind of whatever, but we'll talk about that when we go in depth. So let's just talk about champion paths. We'll start with Fel. I think Fel has 3 paths. I think Fel has 2 paths. Fel has 3 paths. I think Fel has 2 paths. This Revenge path is very hard to play, but the Shift Permascaling path and the Savior path are the ones we're going to talk about first. I'll start with the Shift Permascaling path. This one's the one that's a little more complex, I suppose. It may not seem that complex, right? 1 times 2, 10 HP, shift gain Valor 1 permanently. This is cool. At the end of the run, you'll be somewhere around 125-ish Valor is what you would like to see. You'll be pretty high on Valor at the end of the run. And when you get to level 3, she gets an extra multi-strike as long as you have 75 Valor. There is a relic that synergizes very nicely with this. I'm going to flip around when we're talking about certain things, right? There is shift triggers an additional time. With this relic, if you see it as the starting relic for your run, this fell path will solo your run. She can do it very easily. The problem that you'll face with this path is that if you're not playing that, you're going to end up a little short because she's only hitting 3 times and she's only hitting for like probably around 150 per hit. And this is talking about when you're in Seraph, right? So if you spent your whole run focusing on nothing but making this fell shift more and scale more, what you're going to run into is a problem where you just fall short on Seraph. It happens a lot. It's happened to me. It'll happen to you if you focus on this path too much. You need her to have some help. It's super easy, like the easiest champion path in the game to tunnel vision on and then lose at Seraph, because she'll have trouble in the Corruption. She doesn't have enough hits to kill them. For reference, in Corruption Seraph, you need something like 11 hits to go through the floor, one-shotting each enemy unit with no assistance. This path will not do that, and Banished as a whole does not have a lot of spells that help you ping, which is something you need for Corruption in that case. And it's bad into Savagery because Savagery has these huge walls of HP that she'll struggle into. Entropy, you might be able to get away with it, but I don't know. It's maybe a little suspicious. This path also has a problem of dying before you get your Valor, because Valor gives you a bunch of armor, but she does have to live around, and 32 HP is dying to almost every Seraph on round start. I think you might live Corruption's hit, but I'm not sure. I think Corruption does 28. That sounds right. Anyway. So what do you need to do to make this fell path better? Well, obviously, option 1 is you need to give her multi-strike. You can give her the multi-strike equipments, or you can give her trample through the bird, can help a lot for Corruption Seraph. There's a trample totem unit that you can get. Hall of Mirrors will help her just get a second fell. That's pretty good as well. And I think that's about it. Multi-strike, trample, Hall of Mirrors are what you're looking for this character. And then she'll do a lot. But you can basically treat her as a tank in the endgame because she'll have so much HP through the Valor. All of that armor will be very good for her. And she can kind of just pop off like that. Sorry, quick pause. I forgot to talk about the starting card. I meant to do this first. I forgot. As default Banished, you start with Just Cause, Advance, Apply Valor 2. This is pivotal to the clan, of course, because if you're doing a lot of shifting with default Banished, you have this card. You get 5 of these at the start of your run, so you get a much easier time advancing. The Valor 2 is okay. It's like a better Root Seeds, basically, in the early game, except you don't get the draw. But you get, like, 2 attack and 2 armor, which is good. I think this card is fine. It's not like a game-winning starter, but it's very synergistic with the clan. And it's important for this fell path, basically. Because, like, if you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to get that many shifts, you start with 5 of them. When you're playing this path, though, the other thing I need to say is that in the early game, this is one of the weakest champions in the game. If your starting unit is not good, if your starting spells are not good, if your starting relic is not good, you need to be really, really careful about picking this path, and you might have to settle for the worst path of Revenge or the better path of Savior. Either way, you have to be very careful. You need to be able to assess, because I have put myself, by taking this path, I put myself into a numerically unwinnable first fight. This is one of the paths that can do it to you. If you have a unit that is not a good starter, you need to be super, super careful. And I think it's good to err on the side of caution when it comes to picking this path. If you even think you're close to not winning the first fight, just skip it and pick the other path. Okay, let's talk about Revenge path next. I don't think I have anything else I need to tell you about this fell. Let me one final look through the brain. I think that's everything. There's a lot to say about this one. There's less to say about the other two. This Revenge path is really bad. 20 HP is not enough for her to act as a frontline, but she has to frontline as Revenge. She's weak at Archeon, and she doesn't scale up because her health doesn't get high enough to scale into the late game. 40 HP is not enough to tank most rounds, right? Just thinking about like an Entropy wave is 48 a lot of the time. Corruption waves are going to crush you with Corruption stacking. Savagery waves are going to eat you alive when there's Rage on the floor. This path will have a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble ever scaling. I think she just needs like, I think it needs to be 2, 3, 4 to be more valid, because 1, 2, 4 is too little in the early game. Valor 1 to friendly units is a joke. And it's mostly because there's not enough hits in the early fights. You don't get attacked enough for this to really scale up for you. It's a lot of like low attack, high HP enemies in the early game, right? And there's like one or two of them. But overall, this is the path you pick because if you take this path, you're going to die. Because while it is not good, this path is better than shift permascaling Fel in the first fight. It is for sure. Like you're getting the same amount of value pretty much, but you're getting it to all your units as more damage. This is the path you pick because you need to be careful you don't die in the first fight, and then by Archeon you are probably moving on from this Fel. There are probably cases where you can make this thing work, but I think her base HP is just too low. You would need to get some sort of relic that gives her HP, which is hard to find. But overall, I think you're better off just not playing this Fel. The clan doesn't really support her. You don't have great ways to make your champion tankier through your cards. It's going to have to come through like damage shields maybe. But it's really hard to do, and the reward isn't very good. So this path is not really a long-term scaling path. This is a desperation path. Lastly here, we have Savior, who has just very nice starting stats at 5 times 220. I know it's like, oh, it's only +3, but you get her ability Savior, which pulls her to the front. The advance, it kind of doesn't matter. I don't really ever use it for the advance. You can if you have a shift in your starting clan or in your starting pack, or you pick a shift unit early. But for the long term, this advance is kind of meaningless, but it always lets her go to the front after shifting, so it is nice to have. But mostly it's a 3 cooldown gain Valor 5, and then she gives herself armor equal to 1x Valor. So you can Valor her up with Just Cause, and then you can give her an armor boost into Relentless, or you can just use this to give her some base attack +5 at the start of the fight, and then try to get through some of the early enemies. This path scales up really nicely as well, because at Savior 3, its friendly units gain armor equal to 1x her Valor. This gets kind of nice because you can just kind of protect your whole floor against anything other than Savagery. Savagery raged up will still kill you, but this will keep you alive through Corruption, for example, which is very good. I think there is a lot of niceness to this. It's good base stats. She does okay tanking because she gets that 15 Valor armor boost right away. And yeah, I like Savior a lot. I think it's her best path. I think it's really, really good to play this and just take it for a nice safe line. She's your frontliner though. Make sure you're aware of that. She's not carrying you. She's just going to be your frontliner. And then you need something else to carry you. And that's about it for Fel. I think Fel is a middle of the road champion. She's not super strong. She can be super weak though. I think she can be really, really weak. Over time, originally I thought this path was super OP. I've realized over time that you would rather just play Savior in almost every case. Okay, let's talk about Talos. So Talos' starting card is Inspire. This is 1 Valor to friendly units. It's only on the floor. I originally thought this was 1 Valor to all friendly units. That is not correct. It's only to the friendly units on the floor. This card is overhated, in my opinion. People always point to this as one of the worst starting cards in the game, and it's okay. Because of how Talos works, which we'll talk about in a second, you're always going to have 3 units on a floor minimum, which means that this is actually more overall attack than Just Cause. It's less defense, but in the early game, this is a lot of attack to get you through Relentless. This card sucks in the late game though, but Just Cause isn't much better, to be honest with you. In most runs, you don't care about Just Cause either. Neither of these cards are really anything to write home about, but Inspire does really, really excel if you get... which one is it? This one. If you get this as your starter, when a friendly unit gains Valor, it gains +1 stacks. Inspire is suddenly extremely strong. So keep your eyes out for that. If this ever gives you Valor 2 from that relic, it's going to give you an extremely nice early game. Now Talos herself, all 3 paths have this ability Flight. Flight is a 2-turn cooldown, move her to any targeted location on any floor. This overstacks, you can go over the unit size limit. Not over the 7 unit limit though, you can't go past 7 units under any circumstances, but this lets you go +1 units on a floor. It's really good early because Talos will now have a much harder time losing the early fights because you just have a full extra unit on the floor doing DPS to the bosses. And I think that's about it. Talos is definitely the one who wants to overstack more. You're almost always playing single floors with Talos just because of this fact, which is fine. I don't think there's anything too much to be said about it. So let's talk about the unit, or the paths, I suppose. Talos has a perma-scaling path. She has Enchantress, which is a 6/12 with Celebrate +2/+6. This is also one of the weakest starts in the game, probably the weakest champion in the game at the start of the run. You have to be so confident that you are okay. You need to be like 1000% sure that you're not gonna die at the start of the fight. because if you're not 1000% sure, you will die in fight 1. You will be unlikely to get this Celebrate in the early fights. You have to be aware of that as well. Unless your run is like rock solid, because she is useless. Now what this does, if you don't understand it, is at the end of the fight, if Talos is alive, everyone alive on the train gets +2/+6 permanently. So this is a lot of HP, it's a moderate amount of attack. The attack isn't really what matters about this. You just get super tanky if you can play this Talos path. But I think it's you have to be so careful. You have to be so careful with this path, because this will hard lose you fights. It is so weak. But in the end game, you end up like +100 HP. You can give this Hall of Mirrors and start getting double Celebrates, which is also really cool. You end up in the 200s on all your units and everyone's super tanky, and you have a nice base attack in the like 60s, 70s, whatever it is. It's cool, but just be aware, you will die a lot of the time. I think this has a really high lethality rate, so you just have to watch yourself on this path. Next, I'll talk about Celestial Radiance. Celestial Radiance is also fairly weak in the early game. This is Shift Apply Melee Weakness 1, then 2, then 3. She has better base stats, which is nice, and you can always shift because Flight counts as a shift. So you'll always get at least one trigger out of this, but a lot of times in Fight 1 and 2, you won't have a shift. So this is just a 15-20 with Flight that gives you a small melee weakness boost, which is okay. Something else you can do with Talos in these fights if you're having trouble in the early game is you can start her at the front of the floor, right? Fly her up in front of the train stewards, and then fly her to the back during the Relentless to maximize your HP usage. It's just a slight optimization you can try to do, because you can also get a little extra value out of Valor with that. Anyway, just a thought I had that I wanted to mention. Should have said that at the start, but it just came to me. It's not something I do too often, but you can mess around with it if you're having trouble in fights. But overall, I think this is the strongest scaling path for Talos. This is the path where you get to the end game and you just like launch a 1900 damage nuclear missile into Seraph. You just one-tap the boss a lot of the time with this path. But it's pretty weak early. It's stronger than Celebrate, so if you're between these two, you'll probably pick this if you're weaker. Just be aware of the fact that you are not getting a lot of melee weakness value, and melee weakness 1 isn't that much value when you're not having a lot of shifts, and also in the early game your attack numbers are usually pretty low, so melee weakness isn't that strong. And I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else to say. At the end of the run, you just like shift her a bunch, and then you put up like 30 melee weakness. Even if you only shift her once per turn though, 3 melee weakness is enough to run through whole floors. It's a lot of damage. Suddenly you're 4xing all of your hits, which is really good. Lastly is Battle Cleric. This is Apply Valor 2 Resolve, so at the end of the round, Valor 2 to friendly units. This is the strongest path in the early game for sure. This is the one you're picking to be sure you're going to live. Valor 2 to friendly units is a lot of attack, and because you're overstacking, you're getting even more value. You combo this with Inspire, and suddenly you're putting up decent attack numbers. Nothing crazy, but decent attack numbers and decent defense numbers through the armor. Overall, I think Battle Cleric is my preferred starter always. However, the later paths here, 4 and 6, are not very good. These are pretty meaningless, so if ever possible, I like to play Valor 1 or the Resolve path at 1 point and then 2 points in Celestial Radiance. I think this is the best Talos path because between 2 and 3 melee weakness, you don't really need this much of a difference. You'll be fine usually without the 3. 1 to 2 is the important one, 2 to 3 is whatever. And this is safe early, and then this is really strong as a game plan late. However, obviously you would prefer just going melee weakness 3 all the time, but sometimes you won't get that in the early game. But Resolve, Valor 4, and 6 are kind of useless late game. I don't care about these at all. So it's mostly just Valor 2 in the early game, and then you're getting some value to get through the early game. I don't know, by the way, if you're wondering, I don't know about 1 point Battle Cleric and then 2 points Enchantress. I think it's probably too meaningless, but this path is also fairly meaningless at Apply Valor 4 and Apply Valor 6, so you might just do it if you're not weak after Archeon. You might just do it for the small stat boost, right? Because any stat boost is nice. So maybe you can mess around with that. I don't know that one 100%. I haven't really been in that position yet. It's like one of my only real uncertainties in talking about these. I should mention too, I think that Fel you basically never multipath because Savior 3 needs you to be at Savior 3 and Unchained 3 needs you to be at Unchained 3. You're never going to split or like splash these paths. I guess maybe you could play like Revenge 1, Savior 2. It's probably better than nothing, but I don't know. You're never splashing this Unchained path, though. You have to commit to it at fight 1 and then go all the way. You will never really get there otherwise, because you're missing out on the extra multi-strike, which matters a lot. And then for splashing here, I think you typically splash whatever else you get with Battle Cleric, but I'm not 100% sure on Enchantress because I just always get Celestial Radiance when I play Talos. Okay, that's it for the champions and the starter cards. That was 20 minutes, wow. Lots to say though. Like, I mean, I titled the video In Depth, you know, this video is going to be in depth. I'm going to talk pretty deeply about all of these things. I'm going to try to go over all the scenarios, so I'm not too upset about it. We'll talk about units next, and we'll do the banner units here. Okay, let's go over banner units now. Start talking about starts and all of that. You know how it is. So we're going to talk about these. I'm going to talk about these a lot from the perspective of the first fight and the second fight. You're going to talk to me and you're going to go, oh, well, this unit was really good when I did this, this, and this to him. We're going to evaluate these as if you don't hit the upgrades, basically, because that's when it matters. You need to be able to accurately estimate your power level in the first 3 fights, because I think that that's the most important part of this game. You can usually find a winning line as soon as you get out of Archeon. Well, not as soon as, but you know what I mean. There will be a line somewhere after Archeon that wins you the game. So we're mostly going to be considering these from the perspective of the early game. I'll mention them in the late game as well. Plans to make them strong, because you do have to kill Seraph. It's not a given that you're going to kill Seraph, but I think you are at the biggest threat and the biggest risk of death in the first fight and the third fight. So let's begin. We'll start with Battle Dancer. Battle Dancer is Shift Gain Valor 3. He's a 714. This unit is terrible. He's really, really bad in the early game. This stat line is atrocious, and if you are Exile Banished, he is a 714, like, period. In Exile Banished, this unit is, like, as bad as Spear Steward, probably worse because his damage is half, and he's about probably worse than Shield Steward as well. He's a worse Shield Steward, he's a worse Spear Steward, he's worse than the starting cards, basically. The upside is he has the Shift Valor 3. It can be good, but it is fairly weak. The only way to play this unit in the long term is to give him multi-strike and dualism. He needs dualism. Without dualism, he will never hit the damage requirements. Maybe if you have like double shift triggers or something like that, you need to make this number go 2x though. He needs to be getting more than 3 Valor per shift. That's the important thing. Otherwise, he will be too slow. I tried to play him with like Smidgestone multi-strike, and I played a bunch of them, and it was too slow. He's going to have a lot of trouble scaling because you want to be able to play bottom floor, and there's a huge lead time on this unit because you need to give him a few shifts before he's actually reasonably powerful. So he has to play a higher floor, which isn't always bad, but there are some fights that will just crush this guy as a result. If you play this into, for example, the fight specifically that I lost to was the Spikes Kale, because I couldn't play bottom floor because I needed more time to get him scaling, but I couldn't play a higher floor because I would die to the spikes. So overall, this Battle Dancer unit is pretty weak early and pretty weak late. I had a reasonable amount of success with him playing him as a tank with Titanite plus 20, but the only reason you would do that is because he's in the banner or he's your starting unit and there's a Titanite in the shop and you're weak. And if you're starting with this unit, you are probably weak. In this case, if you can give him 1 or 2 shifts, the Valor plus the Titanite will usually give you a stable-ish frontline for the early game. It's not going to be great, but be aware that if you're playing Talos, you can use her to shift him to give you just a little bit of Valor. It doesn't take a lot if you give him Titanite to make him frontline for you and kill bosses, so that's the upside. But you need to be aware that without some way to make his Valor higher, he will never scale into the late game. Now, speaking of this, because we're talking about dualism, I want to take a moment here because we're talking about banner units. The long-term plan of this clan is usually Everlasting Light Twin Blade, right? It's not the end-all be-all, but it's something that's always on your mind is, can I get Everlasting Light Twin Blade? As a result, this clan wants more deployment number. You're pretty greedy with your deployment number because there's so much to put in deployment for this clan. But the big thing here is you want to try to get dualism because dualism affects this if it's equipped on a unit. So for that, Battle Dancer is kind of nice because he holds dualism well if you see it early, and then you can merge, or even not even merge, you can just give him Everlasting Light, and now he's striking for 4 Valor, which makes him a lot stronger, and the shift effect isn't bad. So he's okay for that. He's an okay holder of that equipment. He's not like your favorite, but he's 1 cost and he holds dualism well. So that's a nice point in his favor. Just be aware that this is the sort of unit where you're starting with this and then you are not taking either of the weaker champion paths. Everything I just said about Battle Dancer also applies to Demonic Fledgling. He's a little bit better because with Dualism, this unit pushes some pretty decent numbers, but he's gonna be the same thing, right? Shift for Rage, Strike for Valor. The Strike for Valor is kind of cool, and it's not, like, terrible, but it's not anything to really write home about. Mostly this unit is Dualism, Multi-Strike, give him the equipment, and that's it. They're basically the same unit, same weakness. 10-10 is a terrible stat line. The only value is that Strike Valor means that this guy has a little bit of value in the first fight, but it's not a lot. But yeah, basically the same thing. They are more or less the exact same unit, in my opinion. I'll talk about the birds later. We're talking about banner units right now. Steadfast Crusader is the same, or not the same. Steadfast Crusader is whatever. That's what I should say. He has the ability Slam, where he advances to the front and deals damage to the front enemy unit equal to his health and armor. This is good, and he's a 1-cost unit, which is also good. I think often you'll pick this guy just to have a deployment filler. He's not a bad take. If you throw Titanite on him, he's a very fine tank, and he's always going to end up at front if you want him to. So you can just kind of shift with Reckless Abandon, and then at the end you can pull this guy to the front with his ability every other turn, which is good. He's good for that. He's a decent frontliner. He's better in the shift plans. If you're kind of just sitting still, he is not as good, but he's still fine. He's not like a strong starter, but he's an okay starter. I still think you would be a little bit hard-pressed to play a weaker champion path with this as your starting unit, just because 530 is such a low stat line. You know, he's not killing bosses for you. You need damage from another source. But that's about it. He's just a decent tank. Nice synergy with the clan with Slam. That's it. A Sword Maiden's really cool. Summon, draw an equipment from your deck, and Artificer gain Valor 8. Artificer means if anyone on the floor is equipped, this unit gains 8 Valor. Another one where Dualism is crazy on this character. 16 Valor for an equip is really good. This unit skyrockets in power very quickly. Now, early game is still weak, but 10-20 is better than 10-10. Holds Dualism nicely, 1 energy, 2 space, all of those things are fine. Sword Maiden is ultimately pretty good. I think she's on the upper end of this clan, but she's not like a super powerful unit. She's like a solid B tier. She has a really good synergy with Exile Lazarus League, because grafts count as the unit being equipped when they're played. So if you have Sword Maiden and you have Exile Lazarus League, every graft you play is going to trigger her Artificer, and then when they die and you get the card, you get to trigger it again. That's nice, and she can get a really ridiculous amount of Valor off of that. It's a good interaction to know. Other than that, though, the summon, draw, and equipment effect is okay, but it's usually very expensive to play deployment as Banished, as we've been saying. So you're basically adding 1 energy cost to the cost of your equipment if you're drawing it through Sword Maiden, which is kind of unfortunate, but you're saving money on deployable, and if you get attuned Whetstone, which if you do not remember is this artifact, you can still play your equipment for free, which is really nice. I think that's a big benefit. But I think often it is very hard to afford Sword Maiden and the equipment in the early game. So she's okay though. I think she's fine. Another one where it's like, it's fine to pick this just as early game deployment filler. I have energy, I may as well spend it on Sword Maiden. She likes, if you have an equipment, she becomes a lot better. Avenger is whatever. I think this unit is on paper very strong. In reality, he's kind of, he's not weak. He's fine early. He's very strong in the early game. 40 HP is a huge health bar for the early game. And Revenge Melee Weakness 1 plus 20 base attack means that he will kill a lot of bosses for you. He'll get you through the early game, but he doesn't really scale very well. There's not a good reason to play Avenger beyond this point. You just kind of pick him, and he's there, and then you move on because he's too expensive. He's 2 energy, and I think he justifies the 2 energy with the stat line and the 2 space. Like, he definitely needs to be 2 energy, but I don't really think that this Revenge Apply Melee Weakness 1 to attackers is all that good. He uses the melee weakness, usually, unless you give him Quick, but then you're putting Quick on your tank, which sucks, unless then you're playing the Quick Bird, but then everyone has Quick, so what's the point? I don't know. Like, the source of melee weakness here is whatever. This guy is just kind of an early game boss killer who carries you through the first 3 fights, which is really good. He's a great starting unit, but you're not really ever going to take him into the late game for any value. And lastly is Firebrand. Firebrand is really good. Revenge gain Valor 2. I think Gabriel might have put this unit in his top 5. I don't remember what exactly his top 5 was, but if he didn't, this unit is definitely top 5 worthy. Firebrand is really good. Revenge Gain Valor 2 scales up very quickly. With 30 HP, she will live the first few hits, and after 2 or 3 turns, she will just kind of hold the line. Like, independent of you playing another card on Firebrand, she'll kind of just sit there and tank infinite value. She's a great frontline tank for 2 energy, and she can hold Dualism, she can hold Titanite, she can hold plus 20. Anything you do to her is good. She's really, really good. She's like a super self-sufficient tank that does decent damage as well. She's not going to be like soloing runs for you, but you can put up some pretty cool stuff with Firebrand overall. I think this unit is a exceptional starter. This is the sort of unit where you start with Firebrand and then you can play whatever you want. You can play Shift Talos, or you can play Shift Value by Celebrate Talos, and you can get away with it very often with Firebrand. And that's about it for the comments. On average, your early game is going to be weak from Banished banners. None of these units are like big, high value items except for Firebrand. And we're only talking about the uncommons right now because these are what you're going to see most often. Rares are, as the name implies, quite rare. So just be aware, you have decent tanks. You have Avenger, Firebrand, Steadfast Crusader. Swordmaiden can also be used as a tank if you have equipment being equipped. She can hold the line with Valor pretty nicely. And you have mediocre damage dealers, in my opinion. But if there's a dualism in your shop, these guys accelerate in value a lot. Something you're noticing probably, a lot of units in this clan really want dualism. And it's true. This is a clan that wants dualism very much, so you want to put a high priority on getting it. Don't over-prioritize it, though. There are positions where it's going to be better on other units, like if you're playing Luna Coven with a Moon Pixie, for example. That might be the only case I can think of right now, but that is a unit who will prioritize it a little higher because it opens up so many lines for Luna Coven. But overall, decent tanks, moderate damage dealers. Really, though, these damage dealers need you to have Shift. Without Shift, these guys are going to have a lot of trouble. Like if you're playing Exile, Banished, these guys are going to struggle very much to hit any damage thresholds. We can talk about the rares real quick. Death's Dancer and Divine Dancer are the same unit to me. They are very, very good if you have Shift. And if you don't have Shift, they are basically meaningless. That's all there really is to say. And then Host Guard has a 3 energy cost and a 3 space cost, but he has 2560 stat line, and he has Heavenly Slam, which is a 3 cooldown flight, move to any location on the floor, but attached to it is deal damage to the front enemy unit equal to this unit's health and armor. Early game, this ability will basically just one-tap heavies if you're picking this unit from your first banner. He will put a lot of threat onto a heavy. However, it's not consistent, and late game this is never going to really do anything meaningful. This guy is still very good because you're paying 3 energy for basically a 0 space Giga tank. He's so tanky. Like comparatively, at a baseline with Titanite, he's 120 HP. Most units you're looking at like 60 to 80. 120 HP with Titanite is crazy. This guy's a monster, and he's free. And you love overstacking floors, he's free at overstacking floors. He's really, really good. The only problem is he hurts your deployment a lot. So what you'll often be doing if you pick Host Guard is you'll take him, and then you will just kind of not play him in deployment once you get all of your really cool weapons and all your rooms. And then you'll just kind of play him late and fly him in, because it doesn't matter when you play him, as long as you have something else to tank instead. Something that can hold the line. So that's it for the banners. I think that generally speaking, though, you're going to be a little weaker. You don't really want to be pathing to Banished banners, but you path based on the shops anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, let's go through the cards now. So I'll just go through each of these one by one, and we'll talk about... it's going to be a rough one. I don't need to go super in depth on all of these, but we'll go through these cards real quick, talk about when they're strong, what they do, how good they are, things like that. So let's get to it. Challenge, Advance Up High Melee Weakness 1. This card is mostly for the advance. You will probably be using this to advance your own units, typically in the early game. It's like, I have a Shift plan, but I'm Exile Banished. I must advance my own units. Because advancing enemy units is meaningless. You don't really want to advance backliners, and advancing frontliners is like, it's like a neutral play. If there's 2 heavies, you advance one of them, and then the other one is still there at full health. The only time that this is kind of good to advance enemies is on the mid-game fights and fights 4 and 5. If you're fighting into the sap fights, advancing the higher HP enemies in front of the sap enemies will give you a decent bit of value. It's basically the only time you care about this. I guess you can advance like a Thane, the floor 7 boss with the spike wall, but that's not as important. The late game of this is you use this to put melee weakness onto the Titans to speed up killing Dominion, or to speed up killing whichever Titan is going to be your slowest kill, which is nice. I think it's pretty good for that. Generally speaking, though, I think playing this as melee weakness to kill heavies is not the line, just because you're typically doing a lot of smaller hits as this clan, with things like Everlasting Light wanting you to do 2 or 3 hits and then scale off of that, right? So I think that challenge isn't super good for the melee weakness, except for like stacking it on bosses. Practically though, like on paper it sounds really good. Practically I haven't had a lot of success with this melee weakness though. Penance Bloodsuit, this is an enemy equipment, shift, take 30 damage. You don't put this on your own units. You can if you need the equip, because unfortunately Sword Maiden's Artificer is only when allies are equipped, so you don't get to put this on enemies and gain Valor, which is kind of weird, but generally you take this because in the early game it's a consume ping. You can kill a backliner or even a heavy. You can kill like a 60 HP enemy off of this, and then you can use this to do about, I would say, somewhere in the range of 100 to 180 damage to Archeon. Technically 90 to 180, depending on when you draw it, right? Because every time he moves between the floors, he'll take 30 damage, which is good. This can push you over the threshold of damage sometimes, because I think Banished has a pretty weak early game, so this card is nice to help it along. You do sometimes need to remove this if you're playing Sword Maiden. She can pull this equipment, which sucks, and it is just a net negative in the mid to late game. But if you don't have it, like if you don't have anything pulling equipment, then this is just fine. Rising Rage is the premier advanced card. Like, this is the shift card in my opinion, because this lets you overstack floors. Banished wants to play higher floors because of Rising Rage. This is your best tool to ascend and advance. The reason this is so good is because ascending a unit triggers shift for the whole floor, no matter what. Same for descending. So this is 2 shift triggers when you're playing like a unit on the middle floor and ascending them up. Overstacking floors early is a really good way to just beat bosses with pure stat checks. And you can also use this on enemies to pull high priority backliners away, or split double heavies as well early on. So there's a lot of good things to do with Rising Rage. And in the end, you can just use this for the advance. It is only really good if you can play top floor, and there's only one Seraph you can play top floor consistently on. That's the Entropy Seraph fight. The other 2 you really want to play a lower floor. You have to play one on Savagery, in my opinion. So it falls off a little bit there, but you will use this for most of the early and mid game just to overstack your floors to escape, and that's really good. I think that that's strong. That's it. But I should say also, don't blind pick this if you're like not really looking at, like if you're strong early and you don't think you're playing a shift plan, you don't need to take this, right? If you're looking at like, I don't know, say you have Pyreborn and you have Hothead in your starter, right? You probably don't really care about Rising Rage, right? Your secondary is probably going to be your carry in this case, so you're probably not going to be overstacking. But it is hard. There's a lot of probablys, but you never know what's going to happen. Okay. Upbeat Warbler, enchant Grant Quick. He's kind of whatever. I think it's really hard to late draw quick, and you have no way to guarantee this guy. So if you late draw quick, you can kind of just lose, right? Technically, there are ways to guarantee this unit, but they're not in Banished. You can play Channel Song, or you can play Soldier of Fortune with Intrinsic, but even still, I think that you would rather just get quick from other sources. In a pinch, like if you're really desperate for quick, you can take this guy and then just try to play him. But you are having the opportunity cost of losing the other 2 common cards in the pack, right? And you will only see 2 commons. If you don't know this, you'll only see the common cards in the first 2 rings. After that, you will not see these cards again. So overall, I don't pick this guy usually just because there's something better in the pack, but you can get away with it. Windblade is not good, but what it does is it gives you an extra shift trigger. Sometimes this is really important for Talos or Fel, but this is also an equipment, so if you have Sword Maiden, you can take this for her. And I think that this guy, Demonic Fledgling, and also Battle Dancer, they don't hate it. If you're having a weaker early game, you can just play Windblade to make yourself a little bit stronger. Because if you're shifting anyway, you may as well get the extra value. It will make a difference, especially in low shift economy runs. Like Exile Banished, you can play this with Battle Dancer just to get out of the early game, but this thing falls off super hard. There's like almost no reason to play this long term. Cleave is OP. This is probably the best common in the pack. Not probably, this is the best common in the pack. With Intrinsic Holdover Cleave, you clear all backline except for into Entropy, sorry. You clear everything other than the Entropy 12-1 spell shield almost always. This card is a really strong plan. And it's something that you get early, so you get a lot of magic shops to plan to find holdover, which is great. Cleave is very strong. Selfless Sacrifice is good early. It's also good late. The problem is you can't use this on your backline because it's advanced damage shield, so you're going to end up screwing your backline over more often than not, unless you have like a Savior Fell or a shift from Steadfast Crusader. Is that his name? Yeah, that's his name. This guy. The guy that was here. So it's good for that. Mostly you pick this early game because having 2 damage shield can be the difference between winning and losing a lot of early boss fights. And you can use this to like pull a unit forward that has a bunch of Valor, like a Sword Maiden if you're playing her at the back, for example. Doesn't happen too often, but the damage shield will protect them and let them get the Valor, which is nice. It's a strong defensive card for sure. Lastly, Divinity. For 3 Valor or 3 energy, you get 10 Valor on a unit. This card's fine. It's a great target for Holy Stone, the one that lets you heal. It's also a good target for -2 gain Consume, and then maybe you could remove Consume later. It's expensive, but 10 Valor early is a really good way to spend 3 energy. A lot of times in the early game, you just don't have anything to do, so you pick this card because it's something to do. It's 10 attack and 10 armor, and that's really good. Okay, that's it for the commons. I think the commons are, on average, they're variable based on what you're playing. If you're not playing Shift, a lot of these cards are useless. If you are playing Shift, Rising Rage is great. Cleave is like independently great. Selfless Sacrifice is great. Divinity's whatever. Penitence, Bloodsuit, Windblade, your mileage may vary. These are only really good if your run is really bad. So, a little bit of variance for sure. Let's talk about uncommons. Uncommons you will see the most of. You're going to see these in fights 4, 5, and 7. I guess actually, yeah, you'll see 3 uncommon drafts for Banished. 4, 5, and 7. That's correct. So you'll see the most of these cards. Sometimes there'll be rares mixed in there. It doesn't really matter. I'll start off with Imprisoned Zephyr. Friendly units advance on strike. I originally thought this thing was like really bad, and then I thought it was really good, and now I think it's like okay, right? The big point in its favor is that it's free, and deployment is really expensive for this clan, as we've talked about. So I think that Imprisoned Zephyr is nice because it's free. If you're playing a shift plan, it's nice to have Imprisoned Zephyr, but it's going to be slow. Like, Advance on Strike doesn't let you always advance everyone. It's also a lot harder to estimate fights because of this. What it does let you do is it lets you alternate tanking, so your units will live longer on average, unless your backline is weak, and then your backline is just going to fly in and die. So you kind of have to plan a lot for Imprisoned Zephyr. You need to get Valor triggering on everyone. You need a lot of reasons to shift everyone. If you do have those things, it's great. Otherwise, it's kind of awkward. Something important to note is that if you have a unit with Quick with Imprisoned Zephyr, they will always tank, because they'll go first, advance to the front, then the enemies will go and hit them. This is usually very bad. So Imprisoned Zephyr fucks with Quick pretty heavily. The last thing to say about Imprisoned Zephyr, there's a lot to say, I'm kind of just abridging it all. This will always invert your floor if you're getting all of your attacks out. So your front unit will be at the back, your back unit will be at the front, and your middle units will swap based on how many there are. I think you can use this to say it's usually best for someone who wants to strike or to advance a lot to be in the middle. But I'm not 100% confident in that. I'm just fairly sure you want the middle. Because otherwise, if they're at the front, then every other turn they're only going to get 1 shift, because they're going to advance only 1 time. In the middle, I think they should always get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how many units you have. Okay, we've talked about these two. Let's talk about Everlasting Light. I've already basically talked about everything you need to know about Everlasting Light. It's really, really good. And you just put this on someone to get Strike Valor to the whole floor. Overstack your floor, play Everlasting Light, put it on you with Dualism. You will scale infinite Valor. It's extremely good. Heroic Dive is okay. I think that Descending is a little weaker than Ascending, because even though you want to be playing on a lower floor, this card is a little less consistent. It's hard to build a run around overstacking the floor in the mid game, because by then you need to have a plan going, right? You can build around Rising Rage because you have time. Heroic Dive is hard to build around because you don't have a lot of time, right? You can't be like, oh, well, I'll just pick up Heroic Dive, because if you miss it, your whole entire game plan falls apart. It's really, really risky. So I think it's a struggle for that. The 2x these units' health and armor is sometimes good if you have someone you know is going to be high HP or high armor. Savior Fell can use this pretty nicely. This is basically just a card that lets you kind of death by 1,000 cuts some high HP enemies. And it matters sometimes. It'll matter a lot. In some runs, you'll be like, oh, well, I just need like another 40 or 50 damage and I'll save myself 9 or 18 HP. And that matters. Heroic Dive can be that card for you. Okay, Songbird, Valor on friendly units adds +1 attack per stack. This is good. I think that sometimes it's very hard to leave space because you're overstacking the floors. If you aren't overstacking your floors, lead Songbird is great. I think usually this unit is better if you're not playing around things like Battle Dams or Demonic Fledgling, and instead you're playing things from your secondary clan. Then you just take this to scale the Valor even higher, which is very good. I think that's quite strong. The big problem though, since the big way to ascend and descend units is to advance them, it's very hard to overstack a floor and then put Songbird or other birds on it because they're just going to fly in and die. So you do have to have another shift, which is not impossible, but it is annoying. Liquid Courage is fine. Apply Damage Shield 1 and Valor 4. Damage Shield 1 is good, Valor 4 is whatever. This is the consumable card that you'll get from the event with the Merchant Cat, where you get a consumable card. This is the card that you'll get from Banished, so it's good to keep that in mind. And I think it will always be Liquid Courage, I'm pretty sure. Maybe sometimes it's something else, but I've never seen it be anything other than Liquid Courage for myself. Death Suit's fine. Slap this on a floating boss, and then they'll take some melee weakness. It's okay if you don't have anything better to do. Fucks with all of the draw equipments in deployment phase, so be aware of that. But otherwise, it's fine. Enchant, Grant, Trample. Punk Shredder is probably the best of the birds because it's really, really good to give your units trample. A lot of runs are solved by you adding trample to them, and this is the sort of thing that you can actually delay a turn or two before you have to play it. So I like Punk Shredder. I think that he's usually worth picking up. But again, it's hard to pick this guy or like plan your run around picking this guy, right? It's very hard to know you're gonna see him. He's just like a nice little, this is another piece of the puzzle, right? I have this out, this out, this out. Sometimes Punk Shredder is one of your outs to winning your run. That's how you need to think about him. You can't rely on him. These units we talked about, Begone is not very good. I think this card is overpriced and useless. Retreating the front enemy unit is almost always bad because you're just going to put a heavy in the back line. And melee weakness 1 to all enemy units is not as good as you may think. I don't think that it matters a lot to put melee weakness 1. A lot of the time, this card is going on like a 400 or a 500 HP enemy, right? In the late game. In the early game, you can't see this card, and in the mid game, this card kind of just doesn't matter. But you're pushing frontline to the back, which is bad for you. You don't want to kill backline, you need to kill frontline, and you have a different way to kill backline built into your run. Melee weakness 1 is not enough, and 2 cost is too expensive. Overall, I think this card is just not very good. Deadly Plunge is weird. Mostly it's weird because it's like the same card in concept as Heroic Dive. It just does more damage and doesn't descend your units. It's like okay, you know, I wouldn't pick this too often, but if you're desperate for little bits of damage here and there, Deadly Plunge is fine. It is nothing to write home about. Shield of Wing is decent as an equipment. It's a little too expensive, but I understand that if it was one, it would probably be an auto take. The main thing you need to know about this equipment is that it does not count max HP, it counts current HP. So as your HP goes down, this thing becomes weaker. There are a lot of units that are really fun to play with this. I think Mega stacking a Mushroom Stack is really cool. I think that Harvest Rector is really cool. Those are the sorts of things that can solo runs with Shield of Wing. On average, this is like an early to mid game take where you are just going to pick it because you have no other backline target access. So this card is good because you're going to notice, if you haven't noticed it already, there is basically there are no pings in this clan. A lot of times your pings are shitty things like advance an enemy backliner to the front. This clan is very bad at target access, right? So Shield of Wing brings that, which is nice. It's tough because it's not really the equipment you want to be playing and it's too expensive for deployment, but it's 10 HP and it's a little bit of extra damage. If you have a super heavy tanky frontline, this thing is decent as well. But you do need to do something about the fact that as your HP goes down, this thing's damage goes down. That is a real problem. Benediction is fine. Damage shield 1 to friendly units. The Valor 2, who cares, right? The Valor 2 is just like, it's nice, it's whatever. This card could just say damage shield 1 to friendly units, and I think it would be of the same power level, basically, in my mind. That's about it. Damage shield 1 is good defensive for your backline, is good defensive for your frontline, is good into Seraph, it's good at the Titans. It's just a good card. It's a little expensive. If you have to, you can give it -2 consume, or you can just give it like double stack -1. Many upgrades, but it does really want upgrades at 3 cost. Lastly, Demonize. Descend, apply melee weakness 2. This card is okay. It's The nice thing about it is if you're playing on a middle or a bottom floor and a heavy walks by you just barely, you can descend them and then sometimes catch them. The melee weakness is nice for the Titans as well, so this card has application throughout. It's a decent card, I would say, is my final answer. Again, it's a little expensive, but it is not a terrible, terrible thing to play around. Well, you're not really going to play around it, though. It's just going to be like another answer, like, oh, this heavy is going to get by me early before I finish setting up. Here's another card that can kind of stop that. And that helps greatly. So, Demonize is decent. I think that it's usually a little too expensive, but you can always just give it like -2 consume. Usually you don't need to play this more than once, because while this clan has a slow start to its scaling, once you're going huge damage numbers. And that's about it for the uncommons. I think on average these cards are okay. Like, you're not going to skip many Banished drafts because you're going to see something that's at least somewhat powerful. Not a lot of like terrible cards. It's probably just Be Gone that I think is really bad, but the rest of the cards are fine. And yeah, nothing like too exciting. Everlasting Light is your big ticket item. This is what you're really, really looking for, in my opinion. And everything else is just like, oh, I could take this. It's one thing about this game, it's usually better to add cards to your deck than it is to not add cards to your deck. It's very often good to have more options. Like, different outs to draw on different turns is good. Things like Demonize might not always be good, but even if it saves you like 5 HP, it was a good draft. Alright, let's talk about the rares. These rares are good. Well, we'll just start off. I think that Banished rares are very good, except for Spike of the Banished. Spike of the Banished is, in my opinion, it's just understated. X cost, 3x Valor, it's not enough. This should probably be at least 4, but probably 5x Valor. At a baseline, it's just worse than Divinity, right? Divinity is 3 energy for 10 Valor. This is 3 energy for 9 Valor. And you could argue, well, you're paying a little bit of a premium because this is variable. 9 Valor is not enough. You're spending your whole turn for 9 Valor. And you can't even give this minus... I mean, I guess you can give this... No, you can't give this -2 consume because it has consume at a baseline. Yeah. No, this card is just bad. I think you should stay away from it. The only thing you should do, or like the only reason you should pick this, is if you have... Oh, sorry, I'm not ready. Is it not clanless? Oh, it's not common. Is if you have Boiler Room. Because if you have Boiler Room and you're killing all the backliners and you're generating like 12 or 13 energy, you need anything to spend on, right? And I need to leave it at I need to leave it at all. And this is something to spend it on, right? 36 Valor is something. It's better than floating 12 energy and doing nothing with it, right? It's still not great, but that's the only case where you're going to pick this, is just I need some cash out for my X cost. Wings Radiance is good. This card is advance and X melee weakness, so if you're at 0 energy, this is an advance for your side for free, which is really nice. And if you need to dump energy, you can dump like a 5x or a 4x or a 3x melee weakness into an enemy, which lets you kill him. Mostly, I think you're going to pick this because it's a free advance for your side of the board, but sometimes you can pick this and have it be I kill a boss really fast, or a lot faster, right? You take a big chunk out of them. This is not a card though, so I think that when you are playing this game, you're not really going to do... Like, you're going to enter Relentless and you're going to win. I don't know when the last time I entered Relentless and lost was. So, Wings Radiance kind of isn't that good for playing on bosses because this isn't going to ever give you enough value to one-shot a boss. Oh, streamer, this one time I played, like, 99 energy Wings Radiance and then my imp killed the boss. Yeah, that's cool, man. On average, that's not going to happen. You can have your cool super high rolls. On average, this card is just going to be like 3 melee weakness, sometimes 2, right? And so this is like enough to sort of kill a boss, or sort of kill a heavy, sometimes depending on your run composition. And this is where you just kind of have to learn the game and think about it critically and be like, is Wings Radiance good for me here? I mean, I guess it's okay, right? You're not going to really use this to one-shot bosses, though. The nice thing is it speeds up Dominion, and that's not bad. I'm taking a few pauses here and there just to like drink water and stand up because there's a lot of talking all at once. So forgive me if there's a little odd gap it feels. We're on Blood-Soaked Arena now, I believe. This room is really good. This room is really, really good. This room is only good if you know that you're playing 1 or 2 characters primarily who are going to get all the kills, because spreading your Valor out or killing it with things like Plague Doctor explosions or spells, not that good. If you have a sweeper, this room is kind of just GG. If you have... I'm trying to think of what else. Like, I guess like a big single unit with trample is also really good. Bloodsoaked Arena is probably in the running for one of the best rooms in the game. It's a really easy thing to take at 1 energy. I strongly recommend you click this. Where are we at then? Tome of the Lost Path. This gives you Talos' flight ability onto anyone. This thing's really good if you're playing shift because flying a unit will let you shift. You can fly to the floor to proc shift, and then you can fly from back to front or front to back. And that's very strong. So Tome of the Lost Path is good for that. If you want to overstack floors, it's good. It's something you can just put like intrinsic permafrost on and then fly in a little totem unit like a bird. There's nothing else to say. It's really good. It's nice to be able to fly if you want to overstack. If you don't want to overstack, if you're just going to play like a single floor or 2 floors or 3 floors, don't care about this that much then. Cursed Windblade is really cool. I think this is one of my favorite cards in terms of design. It's a great way to balance multi-strike, because multi-strike but then strike -1 is really cool. This is cursed, right? It is a curse. Sometimes this will make you a lot weaker overall. Generally speaking, this is good because multi-strike is good, but if you're putting this on a unit raw, they're going to run out. You want to combo this with Everlasting Light because Valor 2 is damage, right? So it's 2 damage per strike -1. You're getting an extra strike of value though, so then you're gaining value because you're plus attack every strike. It's very good. You can cancel it out some other ways. You can maybe try to play it flat, but this will kill you in Relentless sometimes if you don't have a way to scale your damage on strike. Or maybe on kill could get there if you have enough, maybe it's okay. You can play it late. But mostly this is just to be comboed with Everlasting Light. If you put this on a sweeper, they will lose 1 attack per enemy they hit because it is strike. I think it works that way with trample, but I'm not 100% confident with the trample strike interactions, to be honest with you. I wouldn't count on it, but you don't want to be putting out Cursed Windblade willy-nilly. Basically, you got to be careful. And that's about it. Multi-strike is good. This is good on units who don't care about their damage number, but they will take themselves down to 0, so you do have to mitigate the fact that they will go to 0 eventually. But if you have like, I don't know, is there anything, maybe like the strike corruption? This is getting into maybe some freak shit I've never seen before. Eagleheart is okay. I thought this card was actually OP originally. Advance, apply Valor 5 to a friendly unit, then it attacks immediately. It sounds broken, right? It sounds so good. I have found that in reality this is often kind of mediocre. A lot of times the unit you want to put this on is a fragile backliner who can't play this, right? Because you'll just end up stuck with them at the front. The free attack is not worth them dying. It's not good for that. This is basically only good for banished units because banished units have a bit of built-in tankiness because of Valor. So it's okay for that, but otherwise I find this card to be a little difficult to play. It's obviously good if you're just playing like a single monster unit on a floor, because then it's just a free attack, and that's good. And it's good if you can shift after the attack to fix your positioning, but a lot of times Eagleheart is worse than I expect it to be. It's not the good in every situation card I thought it would be, which is crazy because your units attack immediately seem like they should be really good, but they are a little underwhelming. Sanctuary, 3 energy, consume, applied damage shield 2 to friendly units, is good. The biggest flaw of this card compared to this card, Benediction, is you can't natively put -2 and gain consume on Sanctuary, so it becomes very hard to play. Sometimes you have to give it -1 or like remove consume and then -2. Like you have to cost down this thing. The upside is that it's great to put damage shield 2 on your whole floor, but damage shield 2 is not enough in fights where you care about backline, because the only fight that you really care about backline is Corruption Seraph, right? And Corruption Seraph will chew through 2 damage shield pretty quickly. The other 2 fights, it kind of doesn't matter. I guess Savagery, but you can't really tank Savagery with damage shield. You'll still die to sweep eventually. Like, it's not enough damage shield for you to tank everything. It's enough damage shield for you to, like, win a Relentless, right? Or avoid a little chip damage. But this isn't going to be the solo carry defensive plan you want it to be. And it's the same of the other one. The other one is just like, you can give it -2 consume, and then it's like, hey, this is a nice little added bonus. Sanctuary is often going to cost you your whole turn to play, which I think is a little more difficult of an ask. Last card to talk about is Death Metal Hymnist. For 4 energy, you get Enchant, Grant Multi-Strike 1. He's really cool in theory. In practice, he's really hard to play. The best thing you can do with this guy is take him and then find a way to cheat him out, right? And he's worth taking if the other rares aren't very good, because cheating out this unit is game winning. We're talking Richard Garfield's Magic Box, the Jack in the Box that you stuff full of units. That's a good thing to put Death Metal Hymnist in. You were talking sketches, because you can force sketches to give you one on each floor if you just make like 2 or 3 of this guy. We're talking... and I guess actually, let me talk more about sketches. Sketches places the units from bottom to top. So if you're playing bottom floor and you have no other units in your deck after deployment, Death Metal Hymnist will always go bottom floor. So that's another way to cheat it out. The problem, of course, is the energy cost, right? You're passing your whole turn for this guy, and it's still hard to put birds onto floors because of the space requirement as well. So for those reasons, I think that the Death Metal Hymnist is a really good speculative pick if the other 2 rares are bad, but a lot of times you will have a very difficult time ever playing this unit. Okay, that does it for the rares. I think that overall these rares are game-winning though. Bloodsoaked Arena particularly and Cursed Twinblade are both really, really good. I guess only these 2 are like game-winning. Tome of the Lost Path can be good, Eagle Heart's okay. But like, it's average, like, actually I was wrong. It's like a bunch of mediocre cards and then Bloodsoaked Arena and Cursed Windblade. I just only think about these. That's it for the cards. Hopefully you found all the card information helpful. It's like just kind of talking about when they're good and when they're bad and strengths and weaknesses. I don't know. It's been an hour. Oh my god. Alright, let's go through the relics real quick, and then I think that's everything to cover. So we'll just talk about all of the banished specific relics, and you can feel like you know a little more about them. And we're going to talk about these in terms of how good they are as your guaranteed starting relic, because the only time you're guaranteed a relic is at the start of the run and in Ring 8. We'll talk a little bit about relics because I think, or like we'll talk about them as a whole a little bit. I think it's worth talking some about them, but for the most part, it's how good is this at the start of the run, and then what does this do on average in the late game. In the mid game, you're not really playing around relics too much, basically. So, Ancient Pinion, when an angel moves, it gains Valor 2. This is good if you have Just Cause, and it's kind of useless if you don't. One problem with this relic is that a lot of times playing angels is hard, because angels are not very good. So, angels, if you're unaware, are like these units, right? All of your specific banished units are angels, except for the birds, who are hymnists, of course. So it's sort of like, it's a nice benefit if you have an angel in your starter and you have Just Cause, but in the late game, I don't know, is this really that good? No, not particularly. I don't have anything else to say. So, one more thing to say. These 2 units, Talos and Fel, are not angels, they are champions. They don't get the angel tag, they don't get benefit from this. So overall, I think this thing is like nice in the early game if you have Just Cause, otherwise useless. Probably on average not that good. Blood of the Apex. Permanently add +2 attack to a unit's equipment on Slay. What if every single one of your equipment was 2 Bloodthirsty Blades? Is that good? Sometimes, and sometimes it's not. If you have a unit who's getting a lot of kills, Blood of the Apex is GG. If you have a Sweeper, if you have Hothead, this thing is basically just game over. Put any equipment on them and they were going to do so much damage, you win the game. If you don't, I mean, it's a nice little benefit, right? It's some value, for sure. Nothing too crazy. Don't sweat it too much, right? This relic is bad in the early game, of course. It doesn't do anything early. So don't sweat it too much if you're missing slays early on, because you'll have plenty of time to make it up later. Just get out of Archeon, right? Don't kill yourself over 2 attack. That's my biggest piece of advice with Blood of the Apex. Burning Feather. When a friendly unit dies, angels on the floor gain Rage 7. I don't know why this is here. You don't let units die in Banished, so this is like only really good if your secondary clan supports it. But Banished is also overstacking floors, so dying and respawning units is pretty weak. So like, because if you're playing angels, you're going to want to overstack the floor to get more value out of Shift. If you are doing that, you can't get deaths for Rage 7. So this relic is just kind of like, whatever. You can maybe play it in the early game to get a damage boost and then just throw like a Train Steward in front of an Angel starter. I guess that would be fine. Captain's Halo. At the start of the turn, friendly units gain Valor 2 if they're at the front of the room. Is fine. Early game, pretty powerful. Free scaling on 3 floors is going to make you a lot stronger into the first 3 fights. Late game, you're probably not going to notice this, but it is value. You're always going to get something out of this unless everyone's dead. So that's cool. I think I talked about Celestial Cascade. When your friendly unit gains Valor, it gains +1 stacks. This is really good for anyone who's gaining small hits of Valor, Inspire, Windblade, the Strike 1 Valor guys. Basically, this thing is just good. It's when you get a thing that your clan wants to do, get more of it, it's a good thing. Chains of Valkyrie, when you equip an Angel, apply Valor 3, Rage 3, Regen 3. Okay. It's fine. You know, if you have an equipment early, this will probably make a small impact on the first fight. And if you don't, it will do nothing. I think on average, this is not even something I would buy. To be honest with you, it's super underwhelming. You'd have to be spamming equipments, but why would you be spamming equipments on an Angel? I don't know. I think generally speaking, you're only ever equipping one item onto your units. So this is basically on your carry, they gain 3 Valor, 3 Rage, 3 Regen, which when you think about it is 9 attack and 6 HP. Is that good? No, not really. Karmic Sensor, shift triggers an additional time. If you're shifting, this is good. If you are not shifting, this is useless. It's really, really good, and I think it's worth blind picking this if you have Fel as your starter, because I go Relic first nowadays. I think Relic first, if you see this, you take it, because if you get permascaling Fel, your run is going to explode in power. You're going to be so strong. Martyr Signet. At the end of the entire battle, friendly units at the front of the floor permanently gain +6. It's okay. I never see this early, so I don't really know how good it is early. +6 HP is okay, but a lot of times your frontliner is going to be dying in early fights. Like, you're not getting a ton of value out of this, and it's useless in the first fight, right? It's no value. So, I don't know. If you see this after... The real problem is, I think if you see this after, like, Ring 4, it's probably too late. But a little bit more HP is not bad, right? On average, this might be like giving your frontliner a free +20 HP relic. Or not +20 HP relic, sorry, a +20 HP effect. Upgrade, that's the word. Is that good? I think it's okay, right? It's fine. Radiant Arms, when you equip a unit, apply damage shield 1. Sure. Why not? You equip things in this clan. Why not get a little damage shield? Probably useless in the first few fights. Probably fine later. 1 damage shield gives you a little more buffer before you're dying. It can make a big difference. Sky Song Trumpet. Summoning a Hymnist applies Valor 5 to friendly units. An interesting problem of this relic, because it has to be on the same floor, right? It doesn't give it to everyone. And a lot of times, because you're overstacking, and I'm always talking about how you're overstacking in this video, if Banished is your main plan, you're probably overstacking. Now, that doesn't mean every run with Banished is overstacking. That means that when you're playing Angels, you want to overstack a lot of the time. The problem with Sky Song Trumpet, it's very hard to put a unit into an overstacked floor. So, what do you do? And by very hard, I mean impossible. So I think this thing is basically useless. Because A, you need to have a Hymnist that's useful. And then B, you need to be able to put them on the floor with your units. And if you can do all of that, you get 5 damage to the floor. Is that good? Well, if you think about it, no, because you get, after using an ability, friendly units gain +5 out of Pyreborn, and that's not even good. And this is a lot less effort to do. Just a little comparison. You get 5 armor as well. I know I'm neglecting to say, oh, what about the 5 armor? It's not that important. Anyway, lastly, Titan's Edict. Valor grants an additional +1 armor per stack. Cranberry rated this like his 9th strongest relic in the game. Something like that. I don't think that highly of it. I think that Valor as a defensive plan is a little hit or miss, right? Sometimes it's very hard to get Valor to be high enough to win you the game, because to kill Relentless bosses and like go a lot of rounds with them or enough rounds with them, you need a lot of Valor, and Valor doesn't come in these huge numbers. Now, Titan's Edict gets you closer to that, but it's still pretty tough. I think that a lot of times if you snowball enough armor, like, how do I put this? To have enough, there's like a threshold of Valor, right? So if you have too little Valor, this is going to do nothing. If you have too much Valor, this is also going to do nothing because you would have won anyway. So there's like this middle pack of Valor where you're probably in the range of like 20 to 100 Valor, where you're like, wow, Titan's Edict really made a big difference in my run. Especially getting up into those higher Valor numbers. Like when you're playing 5 Valor and getting 10 armor, that might be the difference between someone living or dying. So it's nice for that. But I think a lot of the times this relic is not incredible. It's not bad, right? It's good in the early game as well. It makes you stronger early. It's not bad, but I don't think it's like super OP or anything. And that's it for Banished Relics. I think overall Banished Relics are pretty good. I think that you have a lot of decent things in here. You have this Blood of the Apex. You have +1 Valor, you have the armor one, you have double shifts, right? There's a lot of good things in Banished at the Relics. So you can go to trinket shops if you don't have anything else to do, right? If there's not something crucial at the other side, you can take this trinket relic and you can usually, or trinket shop, and you can usually get something good. And that's about it. I think that's everything I need to tell you about Banished. To summarize this hour and 10 minutes of me talking, you have a weaker early game. You want to play your units on the same floor to multiple trigger on shift. You will have a harder time scaling, but there are a few really good things to do in this clan that can just kind of solo win you the run. Their weaker early game also stems from weaker banner units and not super strong champions. The champions have 2 fairly weak early game paths apiece, in my opinion. So you have to be very careful with Banished in the early game, and you get rewarded with Dualism Everlasting Light solo carrying your run. And that's pretty cool. That'll do it. Thank you for watching. Let me know how you felt about this video. It was a lot of me talking and just talking about the clans, so hopefully you like this. I will probably do at least one more, but I'll see what the reception is like before I decide. Basically, I'm not gonna lie to you, if these videos like super underperform, I'm probably not gonna go through and do all 9 of them or all 10 of them. So we'll just see what it's like. I will be back though. I'll at least do the Pyre board one. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one.